All right, we just walked out of the movie. Sam, first reaction, 5 words or less or more.
To sum it up in 5 words, I would say blood, 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 and blood. I'm never taking the elevator again. I'm going to say my prayers every night, and I can't stop. There was just so much blood.
It was great. The worst part of the movie were all the other people in the movie that wouldn't be quiet.
But they were saying all the things that I was thinking. It's like, don't do it. This is Scary Movie Fright Night,
a new podcast about two guys who just watch scary movies. I'm Chris, and I love scary movies.
And I'm Sam, and I hate scary movies. My body just shook. Give me the heebie-jeebies. No, don't. All you have to do is stay inside in your bed, and then you won't get murdered. Oh. Okay. And now you have that recorded.
Welcome back, Fright Night friends. That was what we thought walking out of the theater.
This was our first in theaters episode, and boy, was it fun. Surprisingly fun.
It's been a few days. We've had some time to stew on it, to brew on it. We apparently don't like each other very much outside of virtual recording, so we haven't actually talked about it. We haven't come together since the movie. We actually immediately broke apart and ran in separate directions so we could save the best conversation for you guys.
Save it for the pod. Save it for the pod.
Save it for the pod. That's why I got my pod bod. Nope, that's not a thing. Which means I just sit around. Bod. Yeah, I just sit around and drink beverages and talk in a microphone. Anyway, so Sam, so what do you think? Evil Dead Rise, first movie in the theater. I have opinions that Team Chris is hopefully going to agree with, but more importantly, Scaredy Cat Sam,
Well, okay. Do you remember? Okay, wait. Quick flashback. When we were trying to come up with a name for this podcast, one of the ideas was Scaredy Cat and Brave Bear. And I was going to be Scaredy Cat and you were going to be Brave Bear. And I don't know why we didn't go with that one because it was a great one. Okay, this movie, I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised in many ways. And looking back, I'm proud. I feel proud. As someone who doesn't love scary movies and who typically would refuse to pay movie ticket admission to go watch a scary movie, I had a good time. And I thought awesome. It was a great experience. When we were standing out in front of the theater before going in, and we were standing next to, I think we took a picture next to the Evil Dead Rise movie poster. We'll post that on Instagram, of course.
Yeah, go check it out.
But while we were standing next to this poster, another lady, I was kind of blocking it, and this lady runs over because she wanted to take a picture of the poster.
Right.
I was like, "Oh, excuse me, I'm in your way," and I moved out of the way. But I turned to her. I was like, "Are you going to see the movie?" She was like, "Not tonight, but I'm going to see it tomorrow night." And I was like, "We're going to see it tonight." And it was like this cool bonding moment with a stranger. That it was like, oh, this sounds so cheesy and dorky. I know, but just hear me out.
I mean, that's you for the record.
That is me. That is Scaredy Cat Sam for the record. But it was just like, we're all going to see this scary movie together. It's sort of like a sense of community. We can talk about the people in the theater who were quite vocal. It was like, we're going into this with this sense of like fear and dread and like, oh, what's going to happen? And we all came out of it together, and I had a good time. And I'm really proud of the fact that we went to the movie and enjoyed it.
Well, I'm so happy that, because this could make or break it. You might have come out of this and be like, I'm done.
I'm done.
Like,
no
I'm
more.
done. You better show me some more Jordan Peele movies or movies with Chris Hemsworth. Otherwise, we're not doing this anymore. So to walk into this movie and to, pull up your britches and stuff down some popcorn, and I don't know, I'm trying to come up with cool things.
Is it the expression to say, like hold on to your britches? Because I definitely did not have them pulled down.
Well, because that would have been a weird reaction. You're like, I'm so scared, britches down.
Now everybody else is scared.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think about it? You're the pro. You're the one who knows the Evil Dead history. I want to know what you thought.
So I will just tell you my impression up front, and then we can kind of get into some of the background. But off the bat, I thought it was great. I want to see it again. And I don't know that I see a lot of movies multiple times, these days. We talked about it at one point, there's so many movie choices that when do we ever choose to see the same movie again? But I thought that literally I enjoyed it so much. There was so many different aspects that they worked in from a horror perspective. That just they brought it all. Now, if you've seen Evil Dead, there's a bit of campiness to the Evil Dead, and I'll dive into that a little bit, right? So we talked about it last week. The original movie, The Evil Dead, it came out in 1981, super low budget, $350,000, and it launched the careers of the writer director Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, et cetera, et cetera. And then I believe that when that movie came out, Stephen King even called it the most ferociously original horror film of the year.
Oh, wow.
So Stephen King was a huge fan of the original, which I haven't seen. You and I should probably watch it. I think it was even rated, and it was rated NC-17 for a 1987 movie, I guess probably because of gore and just violence. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I said in the last episode, we could do a whole sub-series just on Evil Dead.
We could. Podcast number 2. But yeah, so then a few years later, Evil Dead 2 came out, and that's where I come into the picture. So it was 1987. Okay. I didn't see it when I was 5. I saw it, probably in early teens. But 1987 comes, Evil Dead 2 comes out. Again, Sam Raimi does it. Bruce Campbell's in it. A bigger budget of $3.5 million. And while it's technically a sequel, it actually just recreates most of the elements for the first one as if it didn't exist. However, it adds like a ton of its new iconic moments, and some of which were called back to in this movie, and I'll get to that later. Okay. But what made Evil Dead 2 interesting, right, is it's gory, there's slicing people, there's blood, there's things happening, but also it's just campy as hell, and there's like a slapstick comedy feel to it. Like Bruce Campbell's character, who played Ash, he's 100% just like, he says some silly shit. Was
he in this one?
He was not.
Okay.
He made a voice appearance, but I'll
okay.
When I get to the callbacks, I'll bring that up.
Okay.
He did not appear in this one, but he is just like, he has like like iconic phrases that he says frequently. He loses his hand and then like straps on a chainsaw. His shotgun is called a boom boom stick, right? Like it's it's literally ridiculous.
They know what they're writing is ridiculous.
They know what they're writing.
Yeah.
But also they're fighting this creature that again does the first person shot as it comes out, like it did at the very beginning. So that was Evil Dead 2. After that, 1992, 5 years later, Army of Darkness comes out as a direct sequel to Evil Dead 2. Like literally, Evil Dead 2 ends. He's in this other world universe place. Army of Darkness picks up basically right where Evil Dead 2 left off. I guess it was originally supposed to be called Evil Dead 3, the Medieval Dead, because I think he's like in a medieval times universe, but with the same kind of demon spirit. But again, comedic, dark fantasy, adventure. I think also, same creators in the mix. Not as violent or gory as Evil Dead 2 or 1, obviously. But then just, again, slapstick, dark comedy. Right? And so those were the two main ones that I have stuck in my head. My mom was obsessed with Bruce Campbell. While I was deployed on a deployment at some point in the early 2000s, he had released a book. She went to his book signing, had him sign a book for me. She has an action figure that I don't know if she still has. She had an Evil Dead / Army of Darkness like Ash action figure that she bought online. But that's how like the cult following of this, for the people that know, they know. And again, so my mom's going to listen to this episode and be so excited and probably going to have to watch the movie. Even though, it's not, it doesn't have Bruce Campbell in it, but still. So that's where my expertise ends, right? Then a musical came out in 2003, I believe. That was just, it combines the plots of Evil Dead 1 and 2, small tones of Army of Darkness mixed in. And then, I have no idea about the musical, but it debuted in a small bar in Toronto and then made it to Off-Broadway in 2006 and then performed in over 200 cities around the world, right? So
is there a film version of the musical?
There's not.
Okay.
There's not, or at least not that I've seen in my quick lookups. But even Bruce Campbell traveled to a bunch of cities to see the musical as it was touring, right? And then in 2013, there was a refresh of The Evil Dead made. I think I saw it. I don't remember it.
You don't remember? Okay.
I'm pretty sure I saw it. But it was again produced by Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, Rob Tappert, who was also involved in all the previous films as well. And so one of the through points of all these, well, in the first two, right, is they're in a cabin in the woods, not the same cabin with the scientists. But that's, I think that, so one of the callbacks, I keep talking about this list. One of the callbacks at the very beginning of this movie is the people that are actually the people that were going to happen at the end of the story, right? Those people, they're in a cabin in the woods. And I think that's part of the callback, because even though this doesn't take place in a cabin, they still show people in a cabin. But anyway, so that Evil Dead refresh happened in a cabin in the woods, and etc. And then finally,
wait, when did they show people in the cabin in this one?
At the very beginning, opening sequence.
When the girl yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah.
And then finally there's a TV series on, I forget what streaming network. I didn't get a chance to see it. My mom might have watched it, but it was Ash versus the Evil Dead. Like, fans had wanted Bruce Campbell to come back as that character, so he did it. And then I think it ran for a couple seasons and got canceled. And so I think he pretty much retired the character at that point. But all that to say is, like, a cult following that started in 1981. So you understand the campiness of Ash and of the Evil Dead series. And it fed into, like, when the demon, I think they call them like demon knights, or I can't remember what they call the creatures.
Oh,
but
I just read this.
So did I.
Deadites.
Yeah. So when the Deadites say the ridiculous thing, like they said something, I don't know, when they say these like vulgar, random comments, like that's,
yeah. I was about to say one, and I can't even. I don't want to missay it, and then whoever's listening will be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Well, if you saw the movie, you'll know what we're talking.
You know what we're talking about, yeah.
But that's 100% a callback, and so that little bit of campiness, that lets you know it's an Evil Dead movie, but then mixing it with the mom crawling on the wall in the background, walking in the background, her reflection in the mirror, people flying with the sheet on their head, the eating glass scene that just makes you cringe, and you're like, then she swallows the glass and you see it poking from the inside. When the sister's perched up on the counter, the tattoo gun that always pokes her in the eye, right? Like they're running the gamut of every spooky, creepy horror film trope to include those like cringy, almost too gory situations, like the eating of the glass. Like that's pretty gnarly. And then just like Bloodfest at the end. I don't know what more I could have wanted. I thought it was great. I thought it was just entertaining.
All the points. Yeah.
I feel like it hit all the points. The only thing it probably didn't hit for me, well, I don't know if this is that it didn't hit it for me. Like, because of the campiness of it being an Evil Dead movie, it probably could have been scarier in some points.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about, I mean, we'll get at the end, we'll rate the scariness, from your perspective.
Yeah.
But I thought it was great.
Yeah,
you asked me a question 100 minutes ago, and that was my my
you got to get it all. You've been holding it in for days.
I have.
I'm glad that you brought up the fact that the one thing that was tiny bit lacking was the actual sense of feeling scared. And because I came out of that having enjoyed it, having like laughed at some of the parts. I mean, don't get me wrong, like some of those things that you mentioned, like the eating the glass and the tattoo gun almost going into the eye. There were moments where I was like, oh God, I can't watch this. I got to look away. Yeah. I didn't look away, but I wanted to look away. So there was definitely like some cringe and some gore, but I was not like sweating with fear. I didn't have the adrenaline of like fight or flight. Do you know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of interesting.
So my question then is, like, I felt like I had some, like it was like tense, almost tense throughout.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel that? Because I don't know, like, there's like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then there's just like the tense kind of thriller aspect of like, this is really creepy. This is going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen next. Like, is that something that you find when you watch?
For this one, I think the most tension was in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like that first opening scene, I was like, oh, fuck, holy shit. Oh, I can't believe that happened, right? And I actually thought
the standard for the movie in that scene.
I thought the like title like when does the Evil Dead rise, like coming up out
Yeah.
of the trees with a shot of the lake. I love that. I
Oh,
thought
that
that
was fantastic.
awesome.
Oh yeah. That yeah.
Yeah, but and so obviously, in the beginning we're getting to the characters, and then things start happening, right? He discovers the book, and like when it when it
I guess,
starts, and you hear, and when the record player starts going for the first time, and you hear whatever, like it was. I think most of the tension was in the beginning when I was just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Okay.
As things started to get sillier and sillier, I feel like that kind of unraveled, and I got to a point where I was like, okay, the mom's dead. Again, our listeners should know that there's going to be spoilers in this movie. I mean, in these episodes, right? Like, if you made it this far, we're talking about the movie, so we're giving away all the spoilers. But the mom dies, and then who dies next? The daughter, and then the son. And I'm like,
so Ellie, the mom, dies, and then Beth, the sister.
No, she didn't die. The sister, she made it out.
Bridget, I'm sorry.
The daughter,
I got the sisters mixed up. Not the mom's sister, the daughter. Yeah.
The daughter, yeah. Oh, the sister. Not the mom's sister. Yeah. Families, they're hard. So everyone starts dying, and I'm like, okay, so this is what's gonna happen. Like, pretty much everyone's gonna die. But what was that fun? That when they all started chanting, like, everyone dies before dawn. Was that a callback to something?
That's a callback, 100%. Yeah, that's a phrase from the previous.
So at that point, I was like, probably nobody's gonna survive. And the only thing, again, we talked about in The Shining, how there's something about kids dying that if that just feels real, that kind of sets you off. I'm like, I don't want the kid to die. And that little girl was just young enough that I was like, are they gonna kill her? I don't want her to die. Is she gonna be the last one? Like, what's gonna happen? So I think as it started to get silly, and as the trajectory was just like, we're just going to die one after the other, the tension was gone for me, which is not a bad thing. Just at that point, I wasn't scared. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And so that's interesting because I don't think that that's necessarily true for me. So I definitely agree with the beginning. The beginning was perfectly executed from the get-go. First of all, again, if you've seen Evil Dead 2 or any of them, seeing the spirit flying to the cabin, iconic callback, right? It goes in, you see, and then the woman's talking to the douche guy who's on the dock, and she goes in, and the girl's sick, and she sits up and she starts reading what the other girl's seeing on the page. Right off the bat, oh, this is fucked. And then she rips the girl's scalp off, and I'm like, oh, this shit is real. That's how this movie is gonna go, and I'm like, here for it. And I'm here for it. And then she goes out and kills the guy, and she jabs herself in the neck or whatever with the drone. I mean, it's just like oh god.
Yeah.
And so for me, I guess as that scene particularly, right, how they mix the gore in with the just like, that's not what the fuck I expected her to do, right? You expect her to go after the guy, but no, she's gonna make you watch her do this to herself, to where he's just like distraught. Oh, I'm gonna jump in after her, and then she like destroys him. And so when you get into the rest of the movie, I think you're right. The build up to when the record plays, that's just kind of fine. But I felt that there were the campy moments throughout, but to me, it didn't really like build up to a point where I was no longer, I guess, because for me, I'm still fighting for like someone to win. And so, like, I think that the tension kind of held throughout. Like, every time that they went back to that peephole and someone might let the mom in, or as soon as we knew she was in the vent, I was like, oh, shit. This damn woman's in the vent. She's about to come out. What's going to happen? And so I'd be curious. I wish I knew at what point, like, you kind of transitioned to, like, oh, I'm just kind of here for it. Like, people are just dying. I wonder if you have, like, some sort of like the world's over, so why stress about it? Like the people at the end of Cabin in the Woods, right?
Yeah.
They're like, we're dead. Let's smoke a cigarette and talk about it. Like halfway through this movie, Sam's just like, well, everyone's fucked.
Out. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna sit back and smoke a cigarette. That's why you lit up that cigarette in the theater.
I guess I gave up on him. Shame on me.
Interesting. Never give up, Sam. Never give up.
I know. And I was glad. I will say the ending was very satisfying. I was glad
very satisfying
that the aunt and the young girl made it out. I thought the whole wood chipper thing was awesome. I had okay, so you're right. I had given up on them. We heard the record player say, like
that there was no way
there was no way, right? You can dismember them, and they're still going to continue trying to do what they were doing, right? So at that point, I'm like, well, you can chop them up into pieces, and they'll still find a way to crawl around and do that thing at the end of Megan when she's like still crawling just half of her body trying to get at you.
100%.
And then they get down to the basement, and there's the wood chipper, and I was like, ding, ding, ding. This will really chop them up and leave no trace. But then after they made it out of the garage, I guess the spirit of the demon was still there, even though the bodies had been destroyed.
I was a little bit confused about that. I guess
I don't know the science of Evil Dead. So.
I don't really know the science of the Deadites, and honestly, I don't think that there's real science to it. We should call a scientist and find out. No, I don't. I don't know either. I guess. And I'm trying to think back. Like, I think once you destroy it all, I guess it's never really gone.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't keep making movies about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, we'll assume it was the same spirit.
Yeah.
Then goes into the other woman, and you see how that ended up.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going to a lot of the callbacks came towards the end. So I'm just gonna kind of go through these. Well, first of all, one thing that I thought was excellent is, of all the things, they made Ellie, the mom, look creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
I feel like from the moment she came out of the bathtub, I was like, oh yeah, this lady's twisted. Also, when you look at her picture online, she just has that very prominent long bone structure in her face, which is fine for a person. But like, I think that her facial bone structure and her ability and the makeup combined, I think is what gave her the creepiness.
Oh yeah. Alyssa Sutherland. She's Australian. Yeah, she does have very prominent cheekbones.
Yeah, and that in combination with the acting and the makeup, I think made it. But yeah, so these callbacks, right? So we talked about how the opening takes back in a cabin in the woods. The Book of the Dead, they don't actually name it, I don't think, but it's the Necronomicon.
So that has appeared in previous Evil Deads.
Every single one. So in
Does
every single one,
there's the same with the bony teeth. And
different. I don't think that it had the bony teeth in any of the other ones. I actually think I read something that was saying that in this version, they were saying maybe it was like a different Book of the Dead. In Army of Darkness, there were like 3 books of the dead, and Ash was trying to figure out which one was which. And it was campy, and one was like biting his hand, and the other one was doing something silly. But the Necronomicon is the name of the Book of the Dead, and that's a 3-point in every one.
Say that again, slower.
Necronomicon, like
Necro-Comic-Con?
Yes, Necro-Comic-Con is where everyone joins to celebrate and dress up as characters from the Necronomicon.
Maybe we should launch a Necro-Comic-Con.
We should. That's a good idea. It's fine. One of our listeners is like, nope, I'm on it.
Necronomicon.
Okay.
Okay.
Necronomicon.
Nom.
Nope, we're done. Okay.
Okay.
So
next.
The record being played to unleash the demon, same thing. That's a 3-point of the Evil Dead movies.
It's always a record
playing. I think it's always a same thing. Now, it's not always 3 records, right? But someone plays a record, and the record releases. It says it does the enchantment or incantation, lets the demon out. And so that's one of the things that I found out is that Bruce Campbell, I think it was on the 2nd record or maybe it was the 3rd record. Anyway, he voice acted one of those priests. I think that was saying no, don't use the book or whatever. So Bruce Campbell did. He had a little voice bit part. We talked about the Dead by Dawn. There was some weird stuff I read about. I didn't list all of it. That apparently, so there's a GM or Oldsmobile. Oh, man, any of the Evil Dead super fans are gonna hate me because I should have this right. But the car that they use in the first Evil Dead and the second Evil Dead, apparently Sam Raimi uses that same car in a lot of his movies as well. It's a weird thing, but apparently the chainsaw in this movie was like the same faded vintage yellow as the car in Evil Dead 2. I don't know.
Wow.
I didn't notice that, but the big things that I definitely noticed, like when she's standing on the car with the chainsaw, she's like, "Let's get some." That's 100% an Ash,
nice.
thing to say.
Okay.
And the chainsaw and the shotgun, we talked about it. And so Ash loses his hand, I think, in Evil Dead 2. And I think that it's because like the Deadite gets in his hand, so he cuts his hand off, and then he builds a strap for his chainsaw. So he has his main 2 weapons are a chainsaw and his boomstick, which is a sawed-off shotgun. And so her like ending with a chainsaw and a shotgun, I mean, that's 100% Evil Dead callbacks.
I have so many questions about how that works when you have a chainsaw strapped to one arm and you're trying to load and fire a shotgun with the other arm, but single-handedly.
Well,
Anyway,
we'll have to watch the movie so you can see.
Okay.
Yeah, no spoilers. And the one thing that this is the last, like, I don't even know if it's a callback, but I saw this in the theater and I immediately wanted to say this out loud. But we just watched The Shining and we talked about the horror moments from The Shining and the blood coming out of the elevator. But when the elevator filled up with blood in this movie, and then the elevator came to the bottom and the blood like exploded out, I was like, that's how you do an elevator blood scene.
Explosion.
And surely someone that did that was just like, oh, call back to The Shining. I don't know if that's true because that's, again, that elevator blood thing, like, it's pretty iconic. But the way they did it, I was like, that's how you do blood explosion from an elevator. Anyway,
yeah, that was a pretty iconic moment in the movie. And I definitely thought of The Shining when that happened. I was like, okay, nice reference, maybe. Yeah, that was cool. Wait, so I have a question. So Bruce Campbell did a voice. He had a voice cameo on one of the record players. What do you know the deal? Like, is it just that his character has been retired, so he wasn't going to come back as his character?
I feel like there was like a post-credit scene in the 2013.
So it's just a character continuity thing. It doesn't have anything to do with, like, is he still involved? I mean, I guess he had a cameo in this one, so he is still involved.
He was a producer in this one for sure.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it looks like, okay, so yeah, no, because he's been at least a producer in every one. So he did have a post-credit scene cameo in the 2013 one. He had a post-credit scene cameo. I don't remember if it was as Ash or not. We'll have to go back and look. But he did say that basically after his show was canceled with Ash vs. the Evil Dead, that he, at that point, I mean, he's getting older, so he basically retired the character. But also, I don't know how his character would really fit into this because this was way less campy. So
this one was more horror, less campiness.
More horror, less probably more along the lines of the first Evil Dead. Again, we'll have to go watch it at some point because I don't know why I've never seen it. For someone that was so excited to see this new version, it just never went back and saw it.
Yeah. So okay, let's see. You said the chewing the glass thing was pretty gross. And the tattoo needle to the eye was pretty gnarly. Was there anything else that comes to mind that was like particularly like, cringe?
Oh, other cringe
or hard
moments
to watch?
I think that there were. The downside of seeing movies in the theaters, I don't have my notebook to pause and write stuff down. There was definitely like at the beginning, again when she jabs herself with the prop of the drone.
Yeah.
Herself in the neck. There are definitely some stuff like that where like whoever's possessed by the Deadite is inflicting physical damage to themselves. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I know they were there. That you're just like, oh, why are you doing that, right?
Yeah. The self-inflicted damage is always really distributing.
It's very disturbing because they're like looking at you while they're doing it. It's almost like, as I psychoanalyze a Deadite, right? But it's almost like they know the amount of fear that inflicts in their victim. Because they could just go after you, but they're getting some sort of weird, demented joy out of watching your fear while they like jab themselves with something and like
yeah.
So,
Deadite therapy with Chris and Sam.
Oh, just take a knife and just stab yourself in the face.
Pull off your skin. The whole when the stick with the doll
goes
head
through her head.
Which,
what
by
did
the way,
call it? It was like doll stick. No,
it did have a
name.
She
had a clever
it?
name. Yeah,
it was Staphany.
Staphany. Is that what it was?
I think it was.
I think that's what it was.
Which, and I was wondering when we see Staphany for the first time with the doll head on top of the stick, I was like, I wonder if this is this was my fear, was that it was foretelling the little girl being beheaded or something and doing something demented with her head on the stick.
That's actually interesting. I didn't think about that, but that is actually a good point.
That's where my sick mind was like, oh, please don't let that happen to this sweet little girl. Instead, she just murdered her sister. Well, I guess her sister was already fucked at that point.
True. It's also very interesting that you like have this through point of as soon as you see kids, you're like, oh my God, I think the kids are going to die. Because that's never like, I don't know that I actually had that thought. And in my mind, I'm like, well, if anyone's going to survive, it's going to be them. I also read somewhere, I think, that it's a pretty normal through point for only one survivor to be. It is Stephanie, by the way. I just found it. It is Stephanie. But I think that most Evil Dead movies, I think there's like one survivor. So the fact that this is, I think, the first one.
Is it usually a female?
No, because it's usually Ash.
Oh, it's usually Ash. Okay. Because there is that whole last girl trope thing.
Right. Which I've been kind of keeping an eye on. Yeah, since you brought that up.
Yeah. Have we seen that? I guess we saw, let's see, The Shining was technically the woman in this
family. Yeah,
the last family.
I guess we haven't really seen it again since Cabin in the Woods. Even though technically the other guy survived too. Yeah. There will surely we'll see it because I know it's a thing. We'll know it when we see it.
Yeah. Interesting. One of the most disturbing moments too. This was early when there was still tension for me. What was the eggs in the frying pan?
Oh,
I was like,
also,
this is so
bloody ass eggs. Like, why were they bloody?
They had blood in them.
Yeah.
Were they getting bloody?
That?
No.
It's like they were like fertilized eggs.
Oh.
I don't know exactly. You didn't catch that, but it's like she was dropping them in, and as they cracked, blood was coming out of them. They were like bloody fertilized eggs.
Gross. So I'm assuming if you're listening that you've seen the movie, but if you haven't seen the movie, we have to describe this scene. So this is when she's been possessed. She's behaving all demented, but the family hasn't figured out yet that she is possessed and is going to inflict harm upon them. So they're watching her from the kitchen doorway. She comes into the kitchen, turns on the stove, like tosses down a frying pan. She gets these eggs and she just one at a time starts tossing them, not cracking them open. She just throws the egg into the frying pan. But she does this with like 15 eggs. So like the whole egg shell and everything, and it's just cooking or whatever. And then she ends up going crazy or something and doing violence. But during that egg scene,
violence.
Yeah, you know what they do. They do violence. But while she was cooking her eggs, air quotes, Zach, who was sitting next to me, my boyfriend in the theater, leans over and he was like, "That looks like you making eggs." And it totally took me out of the moment. It made me laugh pretty hard. I was like, "They're supposed to be scared."
Is that actually
laughing.
how you cook? Is that how you cook eggs?
I mean, it's pretty close. You know, just toss them in the pan and
I mean, honestly, that's
scoop
what
out
I heard.
the shell.
Zach, he told me you're pretty bad at breakfast.
I'm not the chef in the family. Okay,
that's
so I felt like when we came out of the movie, we talked about before the movie that you think that it was going to be a 10 on the scary scale.
I was hoping it was going to be, yeah.
And that's why afterwards I was a little bit nervous because I felt like I was going to let you down if I wasn't super scared. It was like one time I went to a haunted house with two friends, and the whole time they got really into it. Like everything that jumped out, they would scream, and I would just continuously be like, "Oh yeah, I saw it coming," or like, "Oh, he's not real. He's not going to get me. Like it's fine." And we got to the end, and they were like, "You're so boring. You're so boring to do." Haunted house with because you don't get into it, and that was my fears. I didn't want you to think I wasn't trying to get into the movie because I genuinely enjoyed it and laughed, but I wasn't scared. Like I didn't have the adrenaline rush of being scared. So I started Googling. I was like, what makes scary movies scary? Like, what is the science behind it? What's the psychology? Mm-hmm. And I came across this article that I want to share because I think it's fascinating. I'll just kind of summarize it a little bit. It's from a publication called the UBSSEY, UBYSSEY. It's a Canadian student publication. But Colby Payne, who wrote this article, did an amazing job of breaking it down and explaining what is going through my head and why some movies are scary and others aren't.
They wrote it about your head?
They wrote it about the brain? Scary things in my head.
Oh,
well, well, she answered a lot of the questions that I think that I have about why did I come out of that movie and not feel scared, right?
Right.
The title of the article is Fear Factors, the Psychology of Scary Movies. According to Dr. Lynn Alden, clinical psychologist and professor in UBC's Department of Psychology, the three primary factors that determine our reactions to horror films can be classified as biological, psychological, cognitive, or social. So there's a lot, there's different things that determine how we react to horror films. There's your biology, which may respond in different ways. There's your psychology or your cognitive response, and there's also the social response. So like the social response, for example, the fact that we were all in the movie theater together and all these other folks who were there to like have a good time. They were there to get scared. So when somebody was doing, like the guy crawls down into the hole in the ground to go find the book, right? People in the back of the theater were screaming like, "Don't do that. No, what are you, stupid?" Like, and if that takes me out of the movie, and it was fun. Like I appreciated the experience and it was okay to be taken out of the movie, but that makes it less like I'm in it. And like if I was watching it alone at home at night,
right,
and thinking like, "Oh my God, is there somebody right outside of that window? Oh, did I just see somebody like walking by?" Like that, your mind plays tricks on yourself is when you start to get scared. But in the movie theater, when people are shouting at the screen, you're like we're just here having fun,
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why I struggle. And I think that's why I have the opposite reaction when people are shouting out like that. I find it so disrespectful and it makes me so angry. Like I'm paying for a theater experience. I mean, so like 20 years ago, I used to, I know, because someone told them to shut up. And I was like, thank God. Yeah. Because I've been a theater moviegoer for a long time. I don't go as often as I used to, right? But like I go for the experience. I want it to be loud. I want to be immersed in it. It's a big screen. The audio is surrounding you. I want to immerse myself in this experience. Yeah. I can go watch it on a small screen at home with an okay audio system, and that's fine. But I'm going for immersion. If you can't shut your mouth and you are pulling me out of the experience, I'm mad because I just paid $20 for this damn ticket. You know what I mean? And then the popcorn and the what. And
well,
so that's.
Do you think it's different because this one was so campy and silly? I mean, she bit off the guy's eyeball and then spat it into somebody else's mouth.
Well, for the record, I think that was also a callback to one of the Evil Dead movies. But also, I didn't. So it had moments that were campy, but like, I don't know. I didn't find it to be silly throughout. I thought there were moments throughout, but in creepy situations that made it campy. But also, I don't go to a comedy movie and expect people to yell at the screen. People laugh. And some people just people can't control themselves. Some people get scared and they just start saying things, and that's fine. But there are people that were just being blatantly like, even the dude next to me, like he's talking to his girlfriend in his like normal room voice, and I'm just like,
we're sitting right here,
dude. Yeah. Like he's just like, oh, I don't know why they're doing that, and it's like, dude, I can hear
Thanks
you.
for your commentary, bro.
Yeah, and again, I'll whisper to the person next to me in a theater, and that's fine. And if it's really scary, I expect a little bit of like, or you know what I mean? Like that's fine. But people just like talking to the screen like you own the movie theater, that just drives me insane.
I thought a little bit of the like token, like, no, don't do it, was like kind of funny. Like I appreciated it, but I guarantee there was a group of like 14-year-olds in the back row who were like trying to one up each other because it was a lot. Yeah,
it was a lot. Well, I feel like, and I wonder, what your opinion would have been if it weren't for that. Because movies that are meant to be funny and like provide that comedic, like bring you out from the scare, like there are movies that do that. This one had some of those campy bits. But if you, the scaredy cat Sam, were constantly, first of all, you kind of fight the fear. You fight the fear a little bit.
I do. Right? I take myself out of it, right?
It's it's in your nature to automatically take yourself out of it so that you don't have to like be. I'm trying to like find it. I don't know. I'm a weirdo, but I'm like trying to be immersed and be like on the edge of my seat and be like, oh, what's gonna happen? And so those people are just enabling you to take yourself out of it.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, it wasn't like the most horrific movie in the world because of those campy bits that kind of like. Kind of lightened it a little bit. But anyway, that's my thought. For our listeners, let us know what you think. I'm really curious what people, what the average person thinks about people just, talking out in theaters. If people are talking to the screen like they're at home, what are your thoughts? I would be curious to see what people think. Leave us a note on our Instagram, something, because I wonder what the masses think. Maybe I'm just anal retentive and I'm just like, maybe I need to lighten up a little bit.
These boys need to be shut their mouths in the theater
yard. It's fine. It's fine, probably. Yeah.
Back to the article. According to Taylor, different horror films may seek to initiate different emotions in their viewers. Fear is the most apparent, often provoked by classic horror elements like jump scares, Disgust has also been featured prominently in recent decades, with Taylor pointing to 2009 notorious The Human Centipede, which I saw gross, as an example. While not a strict dichotomy, Taylor explained that films primarily evoking fear or disgust may attract different audiences. Then there's also like things that just create sense of dread or apprehension, which is probably the closest that I felt for Evil Dead Rise, is like, what is going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. That sense of dread is what's giving me feelings of fear.
Yeah.
What else did they say in this article? They referenced, and I thought this was interesting because we talked about this with Megan. The episode of Megan, not our friend Megan, is the uncanny valley, the phenomenon where a creature or object is close to human, but just different enough to unsettle viewers. That's the quote from the article.
That's right. Yeah, because you talked about like dolls, and that's the thing with the trope with the dolls is because are they looking at me? Or are they not? They're kind of lifelike. They're human. Okay, I remember now.
Are they thinking like, are they plotting my murder, or are they just sitting there? I don't know. I can't tell. And that's what makes it
play
creepy.
with them and find out.
Yeah, that's the only way that you can know. Oh, they talk about sound. Score and sound design are important in building a sense of tension for the viewer. Taylor stated that many horror films feature relatively simple shots that without sound would probably fall completely flat, which is what we talked about with The Shining, is how they did that so masterfully. And then there's a lot of good stuff in here. They also talk about just the sense of like triumph when you make it through the end of the movie, especially if you're like rooting for the character and you want them to win and you want them to survive. And then like they break through at the end and you're like, yeah, we did it. And that's kind of how I felt about this movie. Like I was connected to the aunt and the daughter, or the aunt and the, you know what I'm saying? The survivors. I wanted them to survive. So it was really interesting. Oh, and they talk about some things that like mirror the real world, like social issues, things like Squid Game or The Purge, which, you know, point at, you know, real issues like racial and social inequality. Or, you know, we talked about that with Candyman, right? So these things that touch on your experience in real life and even leave you walking away from the movie like questioning the way that you perceive things, or like calling your own experiences into question. There's like that psychological response to the movie. The scariest films, according to title, don't rely on jump scares or gore, but rather force us to call our own experiences into question and leave us less secure in our beliefs. So many different like pieces of the puzzle and like different formulas for creating this sense of fear and dread. And I'm curious if we can find the one that is the true 10.
Yeah, I wonder what will scare you. It's interesting. So I made a couple notes here while you were talking, because I was thinking about it. Like one, I wrote demented mind because I have a demented mind. No, but it's funny. I think as my mom's gotten older, I think she tolerates horror movies less. And I wonder if it's like I started young and things creeped me out. Like, this is weird shit, right? So when I was a kid and I would watch Friday the 13th and stuff, I was fine. But when I'm laying in the apartment we lived in up until I was in like 7th grade, if you can imagine, you walk up the stairs and there's like 1 foot left of ledge before it turns left, and then immediately around the corner peers directly into my bedroom. So I would have like, I'd be creeped out by the thoughts of like, if I watched a creepy movie of someone crawling up the stairs and they're like peeking their head around while I'm laying in the bed and I can see it, right?
Ugh.
And I remember this stuff, and like the way I got through it is I like made light of it by saying, oh, well, Freddy Krueger's my friend. And I would just like imagine he'd be like, hey, Chris, how you doing? I'm like, oh, you know, Freddy just living it up, right?
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing. Not like I had an imaginary friend that was Freddy Krueger, right? But like I made light of it in that way. But because I started so young with some of that creepiness and stuff, I wonder if it's something that's kind of ingrained in me. And I wonder if when I'm my mom's age, I'll also not be able to tolerate it as much because it just creeps me out too much.
Yeah.
But with that...
Wait, can I say something about that real quick?
Yeah.
The defense mechanism of like making light of the monster is...
Yeah.
Have you seen the Scary Movie movies? Any of those?
Yeah, like, I mean, I've seen some. I mean, they're parodies.
They're parodies. But we watched one recently with my brother. My brother and I watched these when we were in like high school, and we thought they were fucking hilarious. So when he was visiting recently, we were like, let's watch one of the Scary Movie movies.
Okay.
And we did. Yeah. And it was the one where they parody The Ring. And I remember watching this in high school, and because The Ring was also one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
Right.
And so the dead girl like crawls out of the TV, but Brenda, Brenda fights her. She's like, "Oh hell no, I'm not scared of you." And she starts like like boxing the demon girl. And I always thought that was so funny. Her reaction when she's watching it is hilarious, and that became my defense mechanism when thinking about like if something coming to get me would be like, well, I'll just fight it. I'll just fight it.
Yeah.
I'm fucking strong.
That's like the adult version of what I did as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of like, oh yeah, we're buddies. We're buddies. Yeah. I'll be like, I'll just fight it off. I can do that. I can fight off a demon. Why not?
Yeah. Well, do you remember one of our going back? This is the second time we brought this up when we were trying to come up with podcast names, and I think one of us, I said something that was like we were going to be Scary Movie Fright Night featuring our friend Freddy Krueger.
Oh yes, yeah, and now he is our friend.
Yeah, that's where that came from.
Oh, wow.
It's from me being a weird ass child. So on that note,
I don't think it's weird. I think it's normal. I think it's normal to find ways to start doing those mental gymnastics to protect yourself from.
I'll say it did not always work. When you watch a one-off movie that creeped you out, I'd be like, Freddie, help me out. This chick is about to kill me. But on that note, so I think that, and I don't, because I haven't seen a lot of scary movies until recently.
Yeah.
I think movies that really creep me out have a lasting impact. Right? Like I'm walking out of that theater and the next time I'm in a dark room, I'm a little creeped out thinking back to that movie.
Yeah.
That didn't happen with this movie. I went home and it was late and I think I hung out for a minute. The lights were off. And I think I even noted to myself, I'm like, am I going to be creeped out? I'm like, no, not really. Like it's so I don't completely disagree with you. Right. I think that, I think that, I enjoyed it for all that it was, but I think for like the lasting fear factor wasn't really there, but that's okay. I don't think that was kind of the intent. I think that it was to be, a well-rounded, great horror experience, which doesn't always mean fear necessarily. Right.
Yeah. Nice. Good point.
And then kind of going back to the article you read, right? So I wrote down so I think what this did is this brought, like you said, dread, but with enough gore, right? They did the dread in a lot of variations, but then she jabs herself with something and then they like cut something off and then there's blood everywhere, right? So I think that's kind of where this hit. And then the last thing that I wrote down, which is completely, I had not thought about this until now, because when you were trying to say aunt, daughter, niece, aunt, niece, daughter, aunt. So in one of the articles I read, it talked about a through point of motherhood, right? Because a sister who survives at the end is pregnant. And so think about the connection this has with Megan. You have the aunt and then the daughter whose mom dies.
Right.
Neither of which are ready for motherhood, but thrust into motherhood. So in Megan, the woman now is like the guardian of this girl. In this movie, she just found out she was pregnant, and she's like, "What am I going to do?"
And she's going to be the guardian of the girl.
And
like both.
She doesn't know that, right? But she is coming to terms with how she will be as a mother. And so and the end of the movie is them walking out together, having survived this traumatic experience. And so I hadn't drawn that parallel until you fumbled over the mother niece thing, but that's an interesting parallel.
And this isn't mother niece, but The Shining was also a motherhood focus on motherhood as well. It was the mother trying to protect her son and survive and get out.
That's true.
Not as close of a parallel, but we've got a lot of mom things going on here.
Yeah. Well, and I did read that in one of the articles, that the focus on motherhood and particularly with these two movies, I think it was just a developmental thing, right? A character developing into and at the end they don't discuss the fact that she has a baby, but they bring it up multiple times, as the Deadites realize she's, pregnant. There's two souls, right? And so this one is a lot more subtle, in that, in the end she walks out and she knows how to care for someone, and she's about to, and she can basically take on the world. She was worried about this one thing. Shit. Now I can do anything. I just stuffed a bunch of Deadites in a wood chipper.
Yeah.
So anyway, interesting parallel.
I wonder how much fun this cast had filming this movie.
I hope a lot.
It seemed like fun. They probably had a blast.
I hope so. After what you told me about The Shining and Shelley Duvall, again, you never know. But I hope any movie where they're covered in blood, which again, Cabin in the Woods, they end just covered in there's blood everywhere. I feel like anytime that's the way you're ending it, I'm gonna have fun. I think if I were in the cast, hope so.
Yeah, nice. Should we do our rating?
We should. We've talked it through and throughout. So I've told you what I think. But just again, because I said it a long time ago at the beginning, start to finish good. This movie didn't have to be 2 hours and 20 minutes. It was an hour and a half long-ish. And from start to finish, the tension started 5 minutes in. And I just thought that, like, you know, there was a little bit of character building when we meet, you know, Ellie and the family. You know, I struggled a little bit with the audience. Don't blame that on the movie. But the movie was great. A little bit campy, a little bit like a lot of it great. Would watch again. Team Chris, go see it. You should have watched it. Go see it again. Rent it, play it, watch it, own it. I don't know. I don't know why I'm so like passionate about it. If I watch it again, maybe I'll be like, oh yeah, I overplayed it the first time. No, I thought it was great.
I thought it was fun. I would, if you're not a scary movie aficionado, I think I would recommend it. I'd say go watch it. You can handle it. There's a little bit of gore, but it's nothing so, it's not like gore porn, you know? Like, you know what was worse? When the Candyman was peeling his thing, his whatever was peeling.
That's true. That was
like,
disgusting.
I had to look away from that. There was nothing in this
movie.
Peeling his
skin off.
Yeah. Everything I could handle. I could handle. So take that for what it's worth. And it's fun. You know, that's just fun. It's silly. It's fun. How scary is it? I would give it maybe a 6. I think the tension in the beginning. Yeah. Would you give it more?
Oh, you know what? This is your scare meter. That's literally me.
The most precise, accurate scare meter that is.
Now I want you to remember, you gave Candyman a 7. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that this falls just below Candyman, and maybe it does. Honestly,
that sounds about right. I think about right. I think I was a little more nervous.
Yeah, Candyman had a lot of like the
museum scene.
It was all serious. There was no comedy. There was no camp, no comedy. All serious.
That's right.
Okay, so that's fair. So I think that's a fair. So 6. Man, we're still not even close to that 10 though. We'll get there.
We got some work to do.
Hopefully, you're right. We have some work to do. I got to come up with these themes every week, and I got to make them sound cool. There's a few things left on the season that if you pick the right movie, Sam, then you can say it. No,
okay, so it's my fault.
It's 100%.
I love these themes, and I don't know how you do it. I mean, I feel like it's a challenge to figure out, like, because it's 3 movies every week. It's got to fit into a theme, but it's good so far. So last week we didn't have a theme because we were going to the theater, so we kind of broke from the theme thing that we were doing, the theme thing.
Yep.
What is next episode's theme?
So the theme for next episode, at the request of my wife, not really at the request, she hasn't heard any of these episodes, but she has told me what she finds the scariest. She doesn't watch any of these movies. She's going to listen. Okay. She will not watch these movies. She didn't go with us to the theater, but she finds...
I missed Shelly that night.
Yeah. I mean, didn't we all? She asked me if I missed her, and I was like, no, you would have hated it. Like, I mean, I like hanging out with you, but no, you would have hated it.
I don't want you to be miserable. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Like, she could have saw, another movie. Anyway, so she said the thing that scares her the most is space horror.
Space horror.
The idea.
So why does it scare her the most?
So one of the themes, right, when you talk about horror movies is isolation. So when you're out in space alone, there's nowhere to go. If you're on a spaceship and there's a creature coming after you, or something's happening, and you're like the last person alive on a spaceship in the middle of outer space, like, so think about how this movie ended. If she was the last one, well, she walks out and society's there. If you're the last one to survive in space,
you're just waiting.
That's it.
You're just waiting.
It's just it. And so there was one time, I don't remember the context. This had to have been like 8 years ago or something with my wife and with Shelly. I don't remember what the context was, but I think we were trying like a meditative thing or whatever. I think she had a migraine. And I was trying to like, talk her through like a guided like relaxation or something.
Yeah.
And so to me, this would have been relaxing, but I was like, just imagine, close your eyes. Imagine you're in the darkness and you're just floating out in outer space. To me, I'm like, that sounds so peaceful. Like floating in outer space with none of the noise of the world, right? Yeah. She's just like, oh my God,
She's like, I see Earth and I'm about to plummet towards it.
I'm going to die. Yeah. That was like, oops, my bad. Sorry. She was like, well, that did not relax me.
Nice try.
Yeah. So the theme for this next episode is space horror. So, which there's actually quite a bit of space horror movies. So I had to narrow it down to 3. One of which, and I'm not going to tell you which one of which was a movie that my wife had actually seen at some point. Again, I'm not going to tell you until afterwards which one it was because I don't want to be biased.
Oh, gosh, okay, this is hard.
But yeah, I'm actually pretty excited. You said, how do I do it? Well, I think we're only a few episodes in, so that's how I do it. It's going to be much harder on episode 237. But, we'll worry about that in episode 236.
We'll cross that bridge.
Yeah. All right, so first movie on the list with the theme of space horror is the movie Pandorum.
Oh.
Yeah. The movie came out. First of all, I haven't seen any of these movies, but they all kind of have a star, like known stars in the cast, which I guess when you get into like spaceship movies and space horror, they probably have bigger budgets and have a bigger cast, which is I just found interesting, but you'll see. So first movie is Pandorum. Came out in 2009, starring Dennis Quaid, Ben Foster, and Cab Gigondet. Gigondet? I don't know how to pronounce it. But here's the synopsis.
Okay.
Astronauts Peyton and Bauer awake in a hypersleep chamber with no memory of who they are or what their mission might be. While Peyton stays behind to monitor the radio transmitter, Bauer ventures out of the chamber into the seemingly abandoned spaceship. The men quickly realize that they are not alone and that fate of mankind hinges on what they do next. That's it. What they do next. Basically, they get some space food. They have lunch. They have a couple of space beers. They brush their space teeth. Dippin' Dots. Then they go home to Earth and they call it a day. Sounds pretty peaceful.
And they've got each other. I mean, waking up with your best friend. You might not remember what your mission is, but you're there with your best bud. And who better to tackle the space monsters than with your pal? Who knows?
I'm going to rewrite these synopses from here on out. Best friends, Peyton and Bauer, awake in a hypersleep chamber with no memory of who they are, but they know that they've been besties for life.
2 men alone in space. I'm really curious where that's going to go.
I mean,
what happens in space stays in space.
That's actually true. That's real life.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, just for you, just 2 men alone in space. I think that I had you at that. I literally should have been like two manly men with no shirts alone in space. See what
they're
happens.
Not wearing shirts. They have shirtless space suits, or they're inside of a space station.
Yeah,
they're not like floating through. Okay, all right. So it's basically like
they're
that
just
movie.
Randomly floating out in space and they wake up.
It's like the Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence movie.
I don't
remember what it was called, but you know what I'm talking about, where they wake up in space and they wake up.
I didn't see it.
They're alone, They're like,
but they're not alone.
There's nothing to do but to hang out and bang. So
true. True.
Okay. Well, that's option 1. What's option 2?
Option 1. So that was Pandorum. Option 2 is called Life. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's like the game of life, but in a movie. Came out in 2017. This stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Rebecca Ferguson, and Ryan Reynolds.
Sign me up. Let's do that one. I guess I got to hear about it first. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why I've never heard of this movie. Maybe I did when it came out. But anyway, here's the synopsis. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station are on the cutting edge of one of the most important discoveries in human history. The first evidence of extraterrestrial life on Mars. I feel like that's a cop-out. Like every... hopefully the movie's good, but like how many movies are there about extraterrestrial life on Mars?
Also, I feel like that's like about to happen like this year.
Yeah, no, that this movie was a prediction of the future.
Okay.
But that's not it. So, as members of the crew conduct their research, the rapidly evolving life form proves far more intelligent and terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Watch as this intelligent creature grows to be the best son, brother, and mother that a space astronaut could have.
What? Wait, what? They're growing a space family? Oh, okay. I thought it was part of it.
This is great. I convinced you completely. I definitely thought you were. I literally said, as a creature the creature becomes the best son, brother, and mother.
I was like, oh, it can morph into, and I was like, you know how much I'm struggling with Evil Dead Rise to say the proper names of the family members, so I'm really gonna struggle with this next one if it's all of the above.
Just let you believe it was part of the synopsis.
Okay, a little space alien family, cute. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see. Life on Mars. I feel like we're probably gonna discover that any day now.
Yeah. With Deadpool and Jake Gyllenhaal played, that the bad guy in the Spider-Man movie.
Oh, he did. That's right. Mephisto. There's our Marvel connection. Yeah. Oh,
not Mephisto.
Did we have a Marvel?
Wrong.
I
don't know. Right. We stopped doing Marvel connections. We'll have to go back.
Yeah, that's not the point of the show anyway. Okay, so but what do we think about this one? So there was it three astronauts on the space station, and it's the space station around Earth, but they're observing
International Space Station. Yeah. So okay. They're astronauts. It doesn't say how many. But there's astronauts aboard the space station, gonna discover extraterrestrial life on Mars. Not really sure how that happens because they're at the ISS. But haven't seen the movie. And then it rapidly evolves into a son, brother, and mother for every single one of them.
Okay, something happens.
And then they eat
it,
and then they have a high protein diet.
Oh, well, I believe in high protein diets.
It's like space cannibalism.
Yeah, I mean if they're trying to get their protein so they can grow big and strong. And I support that.
Yep. Better to be there with a space friend than be out there by yourself alone with no space friend.
Yeah. Okay, so far, first two. One sounds super mysterious. One brings in some extraterrestrial life, unknown what the situation's going to be.
Yep.
What's the third one?
Well, and remember in the first one, they quickly realize that they're not alone. So there's
so there is something like another human or an extraterrestrial,
or all of the above. I don't know.
We don't know yet.
We'll have to watch and find out. Yeah. Okay. Last movie on the list for this week's theme, or this episode's theme, is High Life, which sounds like a marijuana movie.
Sounds like Miller,
but or the champagne of beers, Miller High Life. Although I don't think it's about either of those things. Yeah, sounds like a movie about marijuana and or beer, neither of which, because it's, it would be like beer in space, which
you can't do drugs in space.
That's true. But if you do drugs in space, no one can hear you scream. No.
Are there laws in space? There's also no laws in space. Altitude. I mean, high altitude things hit you a lot faster and harder. So
yeah, but I think altitude only works if you're within a gravity field, because altitude is relative to gravity.
So what does that mean? If there's no altitude, does that mean you're just infinite amount of? We'll do some research. Astronauts drink?
You owe that for next episode. Yeah, okay. You need to let me know about getting high in space.
What kind of drugs do astronauts do on the space station?
That's a good thing to find out.
I'm on it.
I haven't even talked about who's in this movie yet. So it came out in 2018. The movie's High Life, starring Robert Pattinson, Juliette Binoche, Andre 3000, and Mia Goth, which I don't expect you to remember, but she was also the star of that X movie that we didn't watch. About the people that make the adult film
that's right,
in their Airbnb or whatever. So Mia Goth's in this movie, and here's what this one's about. Monty and his baby daughter are the last survivors of a damned and dangerous mission to the outer reaches of the solar system. They must now rely on each other to survive as they hurtle toward the oblivion of a black hole.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I've seen Interstellar. Black holes can be cool. You never know what you're going to find.
Super cool. You never know. Yeah. Hey, join me in a black hole. You never know what you'll find.
You never know what is inside. Again,
Mama said life was like a black hole. You never know what you're going
to find on the inside.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie sounds like a party. It's a group of friends. They're on a little space adventure.
Monty and his baby daughter, a group of friends, same thing.
Yeah. Wait, baby daughter? Oh, it's a son, father and daughter?
Monty and his baby daughter, yeah. Last survivors of a damned and dangerous mission.
It's a baby?
It says baby.
I don't want the baby to die. I'm
actually a little bit confused because this is starring way too many people for it only to be about one person and their daughter.
Everybody else is just voice cameos. They're just
or they're like a hologram. Yeah.
They're just well, I mean, you remember in Interstellar how the Matthew McConaughey's character goes into the black hole and comes back, and his daughter is like 90 years
It's true.
old.
That's true.
So
Yeah,
maybe she
because
grows
like
up.
space time and travel and stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, how are we gonna choose, Chris? Okay, so that one sounds like the fear is like being sucked into a black hole, into oblivion.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like how does that work? Is time slowing down? Is things changing? Like what is, now that we're trying to analyze the type of fear to get Sam scared, that one is definitely like a, how do they rely on each other to survive as time slows down infinitely? Maybe. I don't know. That's what I would think.
Are all three of these considered horror, or are they like there's, when you're watching a really suspenseful like thriller movie, like Interstellar is a bad example because I don't think anyone would think of it as a scary movie, but there's moments where you're watching movies like that and you're like, I'm so scared, what's gonna happen? I'm so nervous.
So I mean, so these all came from a list of space horror movies.
Yeah. Okay, so it's specifically
like I actually
horror.
had a big list of space horror movies to whittle down to these three. So we'll definitely revisit this category again, because I think I right off the bat had 6 or 7, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to like look into these and figure out which ones. So I will say I picked these 3, one of which again was a request by Shelley, but I picked these 3 just based on, I watched the trailers. Spoiler alert, I watched the trailers, and I was like, okay, these seem the most interesting of the few that I had on the running list. So they're all horror is relative, as your article stated, right? So
do you know how they all did on Rotten Tomatoes?
I don't, but I'm not going to tell you because you're supposed to choose.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
You're supposed to choose based on the synopsis, because we don't trust Rotten Tomatoes. It is a resource for us to make an assessment, but not to fully trust.
You're right. I shouldn't use it as a crutch just to pick. I mean, gosh. So here's what I'm thinking. Hold up?
Yeah, what are you thinking? Yeah, talk to me.
Because I want to choose. I'm trying to find that 8, 9, or 10 movie.
Right.
That is like scary. But without having seen the trailers, it's hard to get a gist for the tone, the intensity, the music.
So what I would say, my advice, and this is coming out of literal nowhere. My advice is take this journey as like a long journey to figure out what types of movies you find scary, knowing that eventually we will narrow in on it and eventually find the 9 or 10. Because I don't know if any of these movies are going to be a 9 or 10.
Okay.
We might find a movie that's a 9 or 10 and we might go see it in a theater. But I don't know from watching these trailers, I don't know if any of them I think will be a 9 or a 10.
Can I pick the one with
but maybe space horror is your thing. Maybe it creeps you out. You also have to watch this movie in outer space. You have to get on a shuttle, go out of space, and watch it. So
I'll go buy my SpaceX ticket. I'm curious why a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds, why I didn't know about it.
Because it's a space horror movie. And honestly, to be honest, a lot of movies come out these days. Like, there's so many movies.
But I know about
streaming movies, theaters.
I mean, you're right.
Do you know every movie that's in theater right now? When I looked at the list of movies in theaters, I'm like, what are all these movies?
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I have to make a choice.
A few moments later.
Okay, so I know you're having trouble making a decision. So what I will tell you is one of these movies...
Okay, I need a hint.
One of these movies got a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Can we eliminate that one? Can we eliminate it?
Well, hold on. One of these movies got a 30%. One of these movies got a 67%. And one of these movies got an 82%. But Rotten Tomatoes doesn't necessarily tell you scary.
Right. It's just general audience.
Yeah. But the one that got but here's the thing though. The one that got an 82% got a 5.8 on IMDb. The one that got 30%
out of 10
got a 6.7 on 6.7 on IMDb. So the one with the 30% actually did better on IMDb than Rotten Tomatoes.
What does it help?
The one in the middle also got a 6.6 on IMDb. So really, I just countered everything that I've said.
The one in the middle was in the middle for both.
Yeah, basically.
Oh boy.
2,000 years later.
Okay, we're down to the count. We're going to stay on the air until all of our listeners vote. I'm just kidding. So you have movie, 2 men in space. Maybe they're alone. Maybe they're doing sexy stuff. Maybe they're not. But maybe they're not alone. Maybe it's a 3-way. That's number 1. And that's with Dennis Quaid, Ben Foster, and Cam.
That's right.
Gigan.
And that came out when? When did that come out?
Doesn't matter. Second one, astronauts aboard the International Space Station, cutting edge discoveries of human history, extraterrestrial life on Mars, doing research. It grows into a life form, and maybe they do sexy stuff. Maybe they don't with the new life form. We don't know.
All this sexy stuff. Okay, all right.
I'm trying to get you to pick.
Third
one, Monty and his baby daughter, last survivors, black hole. Think long-term, infinite death. When I think black hole, I think, man, time goes on forever, right? Like every second lasts an infinite amount of time. How do you survive that? What does that look like when do you get older, or is every second just slow down to the point where you never actually age? So that in itself sounds kind of terrifying.
1 eternity later.
I have a decision.
Okay.
The court has reached a verdict. I want to choose, but I'm not going to. The second one, just because it's got all the beautiful men in it. But that's not the point. That's not the point of the show. So I'm not going to pick it for that reason. I am going to pick the one that sounds the most unique and the most unknown and the most I don't know what to expect, which is the third one, the Black Hole movie. And
High Life.
We've noticed I tend to get really nervous when there's kids involved, and that one has a baby in it. I don't want any harm to come to the baby.
Okay.
So Baby in a Black Hole, new title of the movie. That's what we're gonna watch for the next episode.
High Life.
High Life.
And Robert Pattinson's a fantastic actor. Very diversified actor. Obviously Jake Gyllenhaal's great. We know Ryan Reynolds is great, right? Like those are known entities. Robert Pattinson, he's a different kind of actor because he flies under the radar, and then he just does some really amazing diverse stuff.
Are all those cast members that you read for the third one like Gen who's next? Gen Zers?
I don't know which one.
Are they all younger cast members?
I mean, Robert Pattinson's like my age.
Is he? Who am I thinking of? You know what? It's fine. I'll do some homework.
Twilight. Robert Pattinson, Twilight.
Yeah. Why did? But also I assumed
Batman,
that
36 years old.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I just thought he was
Twilight
like
20 years ago.
Jesus, yeah, you're right.
Twilight was 20 years ago. Yeah.
That's fair. Okay.
Which is weird because I'm only 27. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
All right, so we've decided we're watching the movie about marijuana, but it's not about marijuana. It's about drugs and Miller High Life in Space, starring Robert Pattinson. Great selection. I hope it holds up. Also,
is it the one that Shelley has seen?
No. Nope.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Which one? Which one was it that she's seen?
So she had seen Pandorum, which makes a little more sense if you think about the year. The year it was released. She saw it. She actually requested that one, and so I put it on the list.
You're right. I would have chosen it if I had known which one it was.
That's why I didn't tell you. But I will tell you, High Life, the one you chose, is the one that got the 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, for better or worse.
Oh, okay. But then it got the lower IMDb score. Great. Okay.
Yeah. Which again, I don't know what they use, but
we'll find out.
We'll find out. So, Fright Night friends, appreciate you guys hanging out with us this week on Scary Movie Fright Night. Hope you had a good time watching Evil Dead. Let us know what you thought. Like, was it too campy? Was it not campy enough? Was it too scary? Leave us a review and tell us what you thought. Team Sam, did you watch it? I hope so. If you didn't watch it, hey, it got the Sam 5-star rating of get off your butt and go watch this movie.
The seal of approval.
I don't know. I'm literally, you have 12 different ratings at this point. It's hard to keep track of what you post something online.
IMDb, Scarometer. There's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on. But, take a look in the episode description. Our link to our Instagram's there. Follow us on Instagram. We're going to post some cool stuff. And until next time, watch High Life, and we'll come back and talk about it next episode.
See ya.
Hey everybody, Sam and I are back from the future after watching High Life, but wanted to provide you all with a trigger warning. There are a couple scenes in this movie containing sexual assault that may be triggering for some. Additionally to that, there are a couple scenes, one in particular, that are rather sexually explicit, or at least more so than expected. So do not recommend watching this movie on an airplane like Sam did. Maybe don't watch with your parents. If you're going to do a watch party with some friends, just be prepared. But on that note, we're going to jump back to the future, and we'll see you next time.
Tickets to space are 50% off this weekend.
Oh, let's go. Bring the Miller High Life.
Bring the Miller High Life to space.